Nicolae Ceaușescu. His name is one of the most controversial in Eastern Europe's history. Rising from a modest background, he climbed the ranks of the Romanian Communist Party to become one of the most powerful figures in the country. This is the story of how Nicolae Ceaușescu rose to power, how a young activist turned into the leader of communist Romania. Early life and beginnings. Nicolae Ceaușescu was born on January 26, 1918 in Scornicești, a small village in Olt County, Romania. He was the third of 9 children in a poor peasant family. His father, Andruța, owned 3 hectares of land and a few sheep, enough to provide the family with a basic but humble livelihood. Nicolae attended the village school where he was an average student. Records show that he passed his first grade with an 8.26 average and his second grade with an 8.18, placing him third in a class of 25 students. Although he showed some promise academically, he left school at age 11 and moved to Bucharest. Life in the capital was a stark contrast to the simplicity of his village. In Bucharest, Nicolae worked as an apprentice shoemaker under Alexandru Sandulescu, who was an active member of the then illegal Communist Party. It was in this workshop that Nicolae's life took a new direction. Sandulescu exposed him to communist ideology, and by 1932, at the age of just 14, Nicolae officially joined the Romanian Communist Party. At first, his tasks were small, distributing pamphlets, attending secret meetings, but Nicolae quickly developed a reputation for his unwavering commitment and fiery enthusiasm. His activities soon caught the attention of the authorities. By 1933, he was arrested for the first time, accused of inciting workers during a strike. Over the next few years, Nicolae would be arrested multiple times for distributing communist and anti-fascist propaganda. The Romanian secret police, Siguranța Statului, labelled him a dangerous agitator. At one point, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison for conspiracy against the social order. These early arrests only strengthened his resolve, and his time in prison connected him with some of the most important figures in the communist movement. Imprisonment and early connections. Between 1936 and 1943, Nicolae Ceaușescu spent significant time in various prisons, including Doftana, Caransebeș, and Jilava. But it was at Târgu Jiu camp in 1943 that his life would change forever. Here he shared a cell with Gheorghe Gheorghiu Dej, one of the key leaders of the Romanian Communist Party. Târgu Jiu was not an ordinary internment camp. Communist prisoners had relative freedom to organize their own activities, provided they did not attempt to escape. Gheorghiu Dej used this opportunity to consolidate his power within the party, and Nicolae became one of his most loyal followers. The camp held regular self-criticism sessions where party members confessed their ideological mistakes. Nicolae quickly became Gheorghiu Dej's enforcer, helping to maintain order and loyalty among the inmates. These sessions not only reinforced party discipline, but also solidified Ceaușescu's role as a rising star within the party. When World War II ended and Romania fell under Soviet influence, the communist movement gained momentum. Gheorghiu Dej emerged as the leader of the Romanian Communist Party, and Nicolae Ceaușescu followed closely in his footsteps. Rapid rise through the ranks. In 1948, the Communists seized full control of Romania. That same year, Ceaușescu was appointed Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, a position that gave him a taste of real power. A year later, he was promoted to Deputy Minister in charge of the armed forces, despite having no formal military training. By 1950, he was a Lieutenant General. Ceaușescu's rapid rise was due in large part to his close relationship with Gheorghiu Dej. When the party purged its so-called Muscovite faction in 1952, Ceausescu's position became even stronger. The party had long been divided between the Muscovites, who had spent time in exile in the Soviet Union, and the home communists like Gheorghiu Dej and Ceausescu, who had remained in Romania. The victory of the home communists was a turning point. Many of the Muscovites were arrested or removed from power. Ceausescu, loyal to Gheorghiu Dej, was promoted to the Central Committee and later to the Politburo, the most powerful body in the party. Becoming the leader, in 1965, Gheorghiu Dej passed away. The question of who would succeed him was uncertain at first, but Ceausescu, now an experienced and well-connected party member, emerged as the frontrunner. He became General Secretary of the Romanian Communist Party, marking the beginning of a new chapter for Romania. At first, Ceausescu's leadership seemed to bring hope. He relaxed press censorship and distanced Romania from the influence of the Soviet Union. His most famous act came in 1968, when he condemned the Warsaw Pact invasion of Czechoslovakia. This bold move earned him praise both at home and abroad. Western leaders saw Ceausescu as a maverick, a communist leader willing to stand up to the Soviet Union. He was invited on state visits to the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, where he was treated with great respect. Consolidation of power. But behind the scenes, Ceausescu was steadily consolidating his power. His wife, Elena, began to take on more prominent roles in the government. By the late 1960s, the two had become the most powerful couple in Romania's history. Ceausescu promoted a unique brand of nationalism, blending communist ideology with Romanian patriotism. This strategy boosted his popularity at home. For a time, it seemed that Romania was on the path to stability and progress. But while the world was watching Ceausescu with admiration, a different reality was taking shape, a reality that would soon lead Romania down a far darker path. Forced collectivization and early repression. Before becoming Romania's leader, Ceausescu played a major role in one of the most brutal aspects of the communist system, the forced collectivization of agriculture. As a high-ranking official in both the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Defense, he helped oversee a campaign that sought to eliminate private land ownership in favor of state-controlled farms. Between 1949 and 1952, over 80,000 peasants were arrested, with 30,000 sentenced to prison for resisting collectivization. Entire communities that refused to surrender their land were forcibly relocated. One of the most infamous incidents was the Vadu-Roșca uprising in Vrancea County. Here, peasants openly rebelled against government forces attempting to confiscate their land. The military responded with brutal force, opening fire on unarmed villagers, killing 9 people and wounding 48 more. Ceausescu himself led the investigation that followed, ensuring that the survivors were severely punished. 18 peasants were imprisoned for crimes such as rebellion and conspiring against social order. These harsh crackdowns sent a clear message. Opposition to the party would not be tolerated. This experience shaped Ceausescu's leadership style, ruthless, unyielding, and intolerant of dissent. Becoming the leader. When Gheorghiu Dej died on March 19, 1965, the question of succession was uncertain. Despite being a close ally, Ceausescu was not the most obvious choice. He was younger and had less seniority than other powerful officials. However, political infighting among party elites worked in Ceausescu's favor. The Politburo chose him as a compromise candidate, expecting him to be easily controlled. They underestimated him. On March 22, 1965, just 3 days after Gheorghiu Dej's death, Ceausescu was officially named General Secretary of the Romanian Communist Party. One of his first acts as leader was symbolic. he changed the party's name from the Romanian Workers' Party back to the Communist Party of Romania, signaling a shift in ideology. By 1967, he further consolidated his power, becoming president of the State Council, effectively making him head of state. During these early years, political opponents were silenced, imprisoned, or placed in psychiatric hospitals. The secret police, the Securitate, continued its role as the state's enforcer, closely monitoring all aspects of society. Early popularity and foreign policy. At first, Ceausescu was widely popular. His independent foreign policy set him apart from other Eastern Bloc leaders. Unlike other Warsaw Pact nations, Romania did not always follow Soviet directives. One of the most significant moments of Ceausescu's early rule came in August 1968, during the Warsaw Pact invasion of Czechoslovakia. Ceausescu openly condemned the Soviet Union for crushing the Prague Spring, calling it a violation of national sovereignty. His famous speech on August 21, 1968, delivered from the balcony of the Communist Party headquarters in Bucharest, was met with thunderous applause. Romania became a maverick state within the Eastern Bloc. The West saw Ceausescu as a reformer, a communist leader who resisted Soviet influence. Romania became the first Warsaw Pact country to recognize West Germany. It was the first to join the International Monetary Fund. It received a state visit from U.S. President Richard Nixon in 1969. It maintained diplomatic ties with both Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization. Ceausescu positioned himself as a global mediator, seeking respect on the world stage. But behind the international praise, his grip on power was tightening. Economic policies and industrialization. Ceausescu's ultimate goal was to turn Romania into a global industrial power. By 1959, under his predecessor, industrial production had doubled, but Ceausescu accelerated this process, pushing for rapid industrialization. Factories, power plants, and entire industrial zones were built across the country. The rural population began moving to cities, shifting from an agricultural economy to an industrial one. By 1971, the number of peasants had declined from 78% in the 1940s to just 49%. However, many workers commuted back and forth to rural areas, a practice known as naveta. This unique system allowed Romanians to be both factory workers and part-time farmers. New universities were founded, creating a workforce of engineers, economists, and planners. Romania's healthcare system also improved, receiving recognition from the World Health Organization in 1969. For a time, these policies appeared successful. Wages increased, state benefits expanded, and the average Romanian's quality of life improved compared to pre-World War II conditions. But beneath the surface, Ceausescu's rigid economic policies would eventually create massive hardships. Decree 770 and social engineering. One of the most controversial policies of Ceausescu's rule was Decree 770, issued in October 1966. Romania's birth rate had been declining, and Ceausescu believed a larger population was necessary for economic strength. The decree banned abortion and contraception, except for women who already had at least 4 children. The government also made divorce extremely difficult. Ceausescu wanted to engineer a population boom, and for a while it worked. Birth rates soared. However, the consequences were devastating. Thousands of unwanted children were abandoned, filling overcrowded, underfunded orphanages. Many suffered from malnutrition, neglect, and disease, a crisis that would only worsen in the 1980s. To encourage childbirth, mothers with 5 children received government rewards, while those with 10 or more were declared heroine mothers. But alongside these incentives came state control. Women were forced to undergo regular pregnancy tests, and if they were found to have terminated a pregnancy, they faced severe punishment. The cult of personality and the July Theses. By the early 1970s, Ceausescu had fully embraced a personality cult. His 1971 visit to North Korea and China deeply influenced him. He admired how Kim Il-sung and Mao Zedong blended nationalism, totalitarianism, and communism into a powerful ideological system. Upon returning, Ceausescu launched the July Theses, which signaled a return to hardline Stalinist policies. Censorship increased, dissent was silenced, art, literature, and education became tools for propaganda. Ceausescu merged the party and the state, placing himself at the center of everything. By 1974, he took the final step, creating a new presidential office. He elected himself as Romania's first president, cementing his position as the country's supreme leader. Ceausescu had transformed Romania. His rule, once promising, was becoming more authoritarian. His economic ambitions and social policies would soon lead to crisis and unrest. In our next episode, we'll explore how Ceausescu's obsession with self-sufficiency, debt repayment, and power pushed Romania into economic collapse and rebellion. Stay tuned for Part 3, The Downfall of Nicolae Ceaușescu